And from the top of West Mountain in Scranton, Pennsylvania, good morning, everybody. This is 94.3 FM, The Talk, a Sanity Check, Libertarian Lou, Tea Party Mike. Exel is on the line. Frank Sork is off doing some family stuff today, so we're in studio all by ourselves. If you want to give us a call, you want to blow off a little steam, you want to start this rainy weekend off right, you give us a call at 888-577-4487. That number is 888-577-4487. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning. We're here in Texas having the monsoon rain here. It's pretty incredible, but well appreciated here in Texas. It's a whole nother world here. In Pennsylvania, we say it's raining again, and here in Texas, we say thank God it's raining.
Actually, they've been saying the same here too, Michael. It's been a little dry since you've been gone, so we haven't had enough rain either. So we don't know where it all went to, but that's another story. We'll get into that one of these days.
That's the chemtrails, Lou.
Oh,
the chemtrails.
you got the big thumbs up from John over here. That's for sure. So Michael, this has been another busy week for the Muckraker team. We were down in Jim Thorpe yesterday. Had a little ribbon cutting ceremony with the chamber down there, Muckraker TV. We're doing some stuff there and getting some more video out and interesting projects, certainly down in Carbon County. By this time next week, when we're on air next week, the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton Independent Gazette expanded edition will be out. That's coming out Friday. John's blood pressure, I'm sure, is going to be going up all week here. We on Monday will be the Arlington, Virginia newspaper that will be hitting the streets, and then Thursday right away again will be Carbon County. Michael, as you know, and some of our listeners know, we're also going up launching what we call the Quad, which will be taking care of Wyoming, Lycoming, Bradford, and Susquehanna counties here in northeast Pennsylvania. And there's quite a few others in the food chain. If we could, I guess, if we could continue to keep growing the way we're growing, we want to thank our advertisers and certainly those that have subscribed. I can't thank you enough, and our team cannot thank you enough for supporting our efforts. It goes such a long way. And that's it, Michael. I mean, we're growing and going through those growing pains, but at the same time, I just can't thank those that have stayed with us and have supported our efforts in so many different ways. It's not always those that just subscribe or help with the advertising dollars, but those that are spending an enormous amount of time using their talent and resources in ways that is really. We say this all the time, Mike, that, our republic, our republic demands and needs a free and independent press, and we're glad to play somewhat of a role in that, and we'll be talking a little bit about some of that as we go on. But, Mike, certainly this nation, if we want to see it survive, needs that free and independent press and free and equal elections.
Lou, and those are all true, and that also pertains right here in Texas. Things that are going on in Pennsylvania, and I was speaking with a reporter last week of another competition in our newspaper world, and we were discussing it doesn't matter where you go in this nation, whether it's Pennsylvania, Texas, Georgia, wherever, the corruption is thick everywhere, Lou. And we have folks who are supposedly representing us, who are there for us, and yet in reality, they're not. They're there for their own interests. And I'm not saying that all of our politicians are that way, but there's so many of them. And it goes, as you know, Lou, and our listeners, that it goes through the courts, it goes through the Congress, it goes through the Senate, and it goes right up to the presidency. And, I look here, and our folks in this nation need so much educating. I'm looking at the polls for our president and 40% approval rate. I'm like, who is possibly giving 40% approval rate? Now, I'm just using President Obama as an example, but this is how out of touch so many of our folks are. You look and you see some of these interviews, and they don't know who the president or the vice president of the United States is, and it's such an informed community. So I think it's our job as
as citizens, and right,
those.
Absolutely, Michael. Just when you talk about the news agencies, and certainly we brought out some of the stuff that's happened with the AP and even some of our local newspapers here, but a couple things need to be pointed out, and certainly for our listeners to know also. Even though we're a monthly paper, and now, with all these other editions, we're able to break stories in ways that in all our papers, so that sometimes we're breaking stories on a weekly basis, and now online we're breaking them even more so. But we get information from other local news sources right now, and they ask us to do the research and to look at things, because they are just they want to be able to report that it was reported first by somebody else. And right. I mean, it's a sad situation I think we find ourselves in. Yesterday morning, I think I mentioned to you that I got a call early morning from a state senator in New Hampshire looking to expose information not only into New Hampshire, but really would rock the court system here in Pennsylvania. He's running for state senate now. And he said that the whole reason is so that he could get on a committee to try to expose stuff. They can't get the media to print some of these stories, and it's to me, it's really mind-boggling. It really is.
It is, and we have such a culture of fear. And, really isn't that what we've been fighting against, for over 200 years? Is stop the intimidation, and yet it gets greater every year. It gets greater and more really influential in our culture. And this is what it really takes some people to step up and say, you know what, it doesn't matter about how this is going to affect me, it's how it's going to affect my nation. And you certainly have a beautiful little granddaughter, and you want to leave it better than we got it, Lou. And the same thing with my children. And as I look at it, I'm like, wow, they don't stand a chance for the American dream if we don't really get this thing turned around, Lou.
Just having that conversation with some individuals that were looking at the newspapers this week and maybe want to get involved in ways of starting new stuff. And, I said it's not a cliche. I mean, when I say that I really, we're going to want to leave a better place for our kids and grandkids. We really mean that. And I guess, it's just not a cliche. It's something that we really feel, certainly, the folks that we're involved with and what we've done here with the Gazette and that Sanity check too. And we have to shout out 94.3 FM, the Talker, for allowing us this opportunity. And it really is being allowed an opportunity. A lot of stations would not have put us on now going on into our third year about some of the topics that we talk about. Libertarian Lou, think about that. I mean, how many, we go back a couple of years ago, you knew you were shunned when you ran as a Republican on the Libertarian ticket. You even mentioned the name. And so we have to give credit where credit is due, and certainly we do thank 94.3 FM and the Bull Gold Media Group for this opportunity.
We do, Lou. And as we look through, there was a point where they used to say, Libertarian Lou. Now I'm like, oh, it's Libertarian Lou. Knowing that they're going to be forced into accountability. And this is what we have to do, man. And it's really, so many of our callers, like Lou calls in from Greeley, and, there are so many bright people out there who are looking for the ability to really get the message out. And I think that's what really the purpose of media is. And yet, we have such hype now about the Ebola, and I think that's important about this virus that's out there. But Lou, I think back just a couple of years ago how they scared our society, about the H1 virus and bird flu, and Lou, and this is not responsible journalism. This is fear mongering to try and get people to listen to their news broadcasts or read their newspapers, and this is not responsible behavior. So these are things that so many times we're reading things and we're looking at like, how much of this can I believe? And really, that's a good thing that we're starting to question the media, Lou. For folks that are listening, Mike is calling in from Blanco, Texas, which is in between San Antonio and Austin. Obviously, I'm up here in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Michael, some of the things we don't get to talk about before we go on air, and one of the individuals you just named, and we certainly didn't talk about, and folks might think that you're throwing me a softball, but it's just we're on the same wavelength. Lou from Greeley, and I do have his email that he had sent to me this week, and it was one of the topics I wanted
to touch on, and certainly we thank Lou and the Patriot Connectors over there in Hawley that they do a great job getting information out also. But this I found this to be very interesting. It's about a book. It's called Single Issues, and it had to do with the courts. And I'm going to read a little bit of it here, but it certainly ties back into the elections that we're having now and why it's so important. Why it's so important to elect individuals that are willing to stand up to their party and their party elite, because the only people that could rein in the courts is going to be our legislators. And unfortunately, like some of the legislators in Harrisburg today are bought and sold for by the Bar Association and the trial lawyers, and of course they're there to protect their own interests. It goes to this. It says the long and the short of it is that the court now exercises political functions without facing political restraint or responsibility, which is true. Despite its rhetoric of checks and balances, it has become a grave anomaly in a system of self-government, not to mention a government of laws, not men. It has the very quality that should be absent from law itself, unpredictability. It tells us, sometimes to our surprise, what the Constitution says today. We have no idea what the Constitution will mean tomorrow. And obviously he's talking about the courts. A branch of government that can order sweeping social changes without answering to voters or to other branches of government, short of a drastic remedy or of impeachment, simply cannot be described as an independent and equal branch of our government. It is far too independent to be equal. It is so independent that it is truly supreme. It's talking about our courts. We've been on the courts for quite some time, and I think this just hit the nail on the head. And it goes back to we need legislators. We need legislators in Harrisburg that are willing to stand up to the courts and rein them in. Otherwise, we don't have three equal branches of government.
You know, Lou, you are right, and that was the whole intent of our forefathers, and my wife and I talked about that all the time, that could they ever have imagined of writing a document that really is ingenious. Of course, I feel that was inspired divinely, that it's being all twisted, Lou. And, you know, that's why we need people in legislation to, like Betsy Summers, like a Melanie Madeira, to change those things. And this is why we can't just go into the ballot box and push the same old names, because we can see where that got us from. But, you know, little by little, Lou, I see, you know, some of the established, you know, even the Republican Party might be changing, but realizing that, you know, the old
good old boy system.
The good old boys, thank you, who are not bringing in the votes, Lou, and they've got to change. And this really is not a change for the party, but it's a change for the nation, Lou, where we have to continue to look for other people to vote for, and really the untraditional to vote for, those that really have nothing in it other than doing the right thing, Lou. And this is what we have to continue to look for. And really, if, you know, it's so many, I had a discussion the other day, a gentleman said, what do you think? Is there going to be a good libertarian candidate for presidency? Because he's had it, Lou. And this is a young man in his 40s who has a family to be concerned about in the oil industry. So you see little by little people looking for options. And really, you know, there was not that long ago, Lou, people didn't even know what the Libertarian Party was. Now
right.
Today, all of a sudden, it's a real threat to both parties.
And that's when we do take a break, and we'll be doing that in a minute or two here when we bring X on. That's definitely going to be the next topic of conversation, what's been going on, how independents are shaping the elections, even in this 2014 election cycle. But once again, you know, we brought back the Constitution, and when one person, and we hear this all the time, how can a judge make these rules and regulations? That was the whole idea of electing people to our Congress, to our legislature, that if we didn't like what they had to say, they had to be held responsible, and yet these judges and these courts are not held responsible. And I think what, you know, the email that Lou from Greeley had sent, it really is. It is far too independent independent to be equal. Our courts are way too far to be too independent to be equal. It is so independent that it's truly supreme. And that's why it is so important, folks, to really start holding our state legislators accountable to the Constitution, to what they stand for, to what they swear to uphold. And so anyway, so that's the thing on the courts. Mike, before we take a break, I just wanted to touch on one quick thing, right to knows. Certainly this past week, Frank Sorek had called the Lisa Propop, who's the I guess the spokesperson for Wilkes-Barre, and had a simple question. One of their DPW employees got busted for stealing, and Frank just wanted to get some information. And bluntly, he was just told, "Well, you want some information? Just go get a right to know." And yeah, I know it's absolutely absurd. So anyway, he brought this subject up at the city council meeting the other day, and what happened was, it says, I have been submitting right to knows for years, and have gotten perhaps one in 5 days, and most, like 99%, are delayed 30 days. I'm trying to read this. Even the later is denied, and to the best of my knowledge, none from the Gazette in 5 days. Am I or the Gazette? What happened was the Reverend Felton, who heads up a organization in Wilkes-Barre. John, do you know which one it is? The NAACP, he said, he was told that he got up and he says, "Oh no, I get my right to knows in 5 days." So Frank just laid it right out there. He says, "Is the Reverend Felting getting the Royal Wilkes-Barre treatment because of his color?" He just lays it right out. It's hard to tell where the discriminatory line is drawn here. But at any rate, please see the new right to know attached. Frank went ahead and put a right to know request in for every right to know that's in the last 5 years. He wants to match it up, see who's getting the information, see who's not getting the information. We're going to take a quick break. We got Lou from Greeley on the line, and we're going to bring X on. We got some interesting conversations. You listen to Sanity Check 94.3 FM, The Talker. That's us. The screams all sound the same. And as always, don't listen to a word we say. This is 94.3 FM, The Talker, Sanity Check, Libertarian Lou, Tea Party Mike. We're bringing X on the line. Good morning, X.
How you doing?
We're doing great. Hey, listen, before we launch into some of our stuff, I want to take Lou from Greeley. Lou's on the line. Good morning, Lou.
Morning, Lou. Hey, Mike. X. Hey. Boy. Scary what you guys have done to me, isn't it?
Hey, Lou, I'll never forget. It was almost 2 years ago. I still remember you guys coming up to us and saying, "Man, we love your show. Mike, we really love you. But Lou, I don't know about you yet." You know, there was, that's okay, though. Just for 1 minute, and it goes to the point of when we're able to have conversations. I think that's at the end of the day. I think that's where we really can change minds, Lou. In so many ways, we probably agree on so many different issues, all of us. And then when we sit down and have a conversation, not using these 30-second sound bites, and actually lay out why we feel the way we feel, I think, I've certainly changed my positions on certain things over the years by having an opportunity to actually talk and listen. And I think that's what 94.3 has given us, that opportunity, and same with the paper. And you guys up in, up there in the Patriot Connectors, we've come up, we've been able to talk, we've been able to discuss. And once again, as well as I do, all the folks don't agree on anything, but when we could sit down and have a rational conversation, it's really great. I really loved that email that you sent me. I thought that was really drove home the point about the courts and how really we don't have three equal branches of government. Right.
That was what I wanted to talk about, was the book. One thing I didn't hear you mention was the really scary part about that book. Is that it was printed in 1983.
Wow. That's right. Yep, there it is. Yep, I see that.
And the essays, it's a collection of essays by this gentleman. I forget the publication that he was writing for, but it was a collection of essays that he wrote between 75 and 82.
It says the Human Life Review.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Between 75 and 82. But that clip right there, that excerpt right there, is out of today's headlines.
Unbelievable, it really is. And,
nothing's changed.
No, and actually, I think it's gotten a lot worse. And once again, that's why it's so important, Lou, and we keep driving this point home. The only people that are going to rein in this judiciary, because they just speak laws. We've talked about it, whether it's jury nullification or so many other things. They just speak laws, and then we don't have the backbone in our legislators to rein these people in and say, no, wait a minute, you don't have the authority to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I mean, once again, I appreciate your call. I appreciate everything that you guys have done up there. You guys have been spreading the word, and like David Madeira has said, and other folks have said, we're lighting these little brush fires all over the place, and hopefully before long it catches on and does the things that we all want to do, and that is to not only wake up the public but also to educate them. We're still uninformed on so many issues. Lord knows how some of the people out there are uninformed on issues.
Yeah, I do have one question for you.
Uh-oh.
Are you going to be able to make it to Beach Lake next Sunday?
Detroit.
Yeah, the governor is speaking the Republican Women's Harvest Gala. The governor is going to be there. David's going to be there.
Detroit. You said Detroit, Michigan?
Detroit? No. Outside of Holmesdale.
It's not on my calendar yet, but it is now, Louis. So thank you, and thank you for bringing that up.
Okay, I'll email you the phone number.
Okay, It sounds fantastic, and we will make it up, and we'll certainly have a presence. At least the Independent Gazette will be up there one way or the other. Thanks for the information.
Okay, buddy.
You have a great day. X. Okay, we got you now. What kind of words are wisdom?
One of the things that I've been noticing is that the tip line for the paper has been getting in lots of stuff from places that are beyond the borders of where the paper has been going.
Absolutely.
The fact that you mentioned New Hampshire and so forth, it just goes to show you how people are starved to get information out and how it's controlled through the corporate media. I'm
going to read a email a little later on in our show from Wayne Allen Root out of Las Vegas. Once again, but you're right. We have been getting information. And when he said Detroit, we're actually working on some stories from Detroit. We have investigative writers in Chicago looking at certain information. X, as well as I do, we've been deluged from all kinds of towns across the country, Hartford, Connecticut, you name it. I mean, I could almost throw a dart. South Dakota, North Dakota, Montana, people calling us about different stuff. And obviously they're hearing about it online, or they're reading some of our stories online, and it's resonating with them, and they feel as though that they have a voice. And one of the reasons that you're getting Arlington, Virginia off the ground, and we're looking forward to that.
Be a great thing, because hopefully some of the things we're going to talk about might end up in the hands of some of these political types down here.
You think?
And I think it's a good way of putting them on notice that, like, the idea of you being able to control a story. Well, you know what? We're going to start talking about the things that you don't want to talk about. The things that are going to make you uncomfortable, that are going to make the establishment uncomfortable. Because there's one thing, that we can always count on, is the fact that both Republicans and Democrats always want to give a legitimacy to the corrupt system that they have, because they're the ones that benefit from it.
Well, that was one of the things you wanted to talk about. We talked a little bit about this last night, about how the independents, some libertarians, are running, how the rules are being changed as the rules move forward. We're certainly, and listening to some of the news broadcasts last night, and just doing some of my research, I think it's starting to get picked up, both Mike and X, on how independents, this might be the beginning of the wave. And it's just not libertarians, but independents in general. Certainly we're seeing what's happening in Kansas. Now we're looking at South Dakota. A number of libertarians that are running are in double digits. So there's starting to be a change in the electorate itself that is saying, wait a minute, perhaps maybe we have been wasting our votes casting it for some of these parties, and maybe we have to look at individual candidates like we're doing up here in Northeast Pennsylvania.
Well, a good part that you're discussing, Lou, is the fact that it's what's going to happen is once the vote totals for people that are not establishment types start to rise, then you're going to see even more laws come into place to try to exclude them. So a good example is the race in Kentucky that we were looking at. The guy named David Patterson, he's 42, he's a cop. He's running as a libertarian. He's polling at about 6 or 7% in the state of Kentucky. The public television station, I mean, think about this. This isn't a private corporation. The public television station they've got emails. He's suing them because they're trying to keep him out of a debate where he met all of their requirements. So they were already trying to rig the system because they figured, holy moly, we never thought he'd get to 5%. Let's put something in place because we can't have him on the stage with Mitch McConnell and Grimes talking about his issues. I mean, think about it. He's 42. This is a person that could directly talk about police militarization, how we deal with civil forfeiture, and so forth.
Civil forfeiture, Michael, that's another story that we really haven't touched on. But X, what you mentioning about suing, there's a number of federal lawsuits that are flying now all over the place. One, of course, is about with the League of Women. Well, actually, not the League of Women Voters, but the Presidential Debate Commission. Gary Johnson. Actually, Gary Johnson is going to be in the tri-state area this week. He called me late last night. It was close to midnight. He was just hopping on a plane, and we were going to try to get together this week. But talking about lawsuits, obviously they're suing the Presidential Debate Commission, and we're doing a story in all our electoral editions for the Gazette about what the League of Women Voters did. I spoke to the president of the League, of the National League of Women Voters this week, and I have their email. This went all the way back to 1988. The League refuses to help perpetrate a fraud. We brought this up. Withdraws support from presidential debate. I mean, think about this, and this is one of the things that I talked to Elizabeth McNamara. She is the president of the League of Women Voters, and I posed this question to her. I said, have you been on the TV? Has anybody from the League been on TV talking about this? Can you imagine, X and Mike, and I'll just think about this. If the president of the League of Women Voters was allowed to go on TV, allowed, especially before all these presidential debates since 1988, and said the League has withdrawn their support because the League feels as though that the Presidential Debate Commission and the candidates, she had some great quotes, and I don't have them in front of me, is helping perpetrate a fraud on the American public. What would that say? And what does that say about our media? I mean, here is the president of the League of Women Voters saying that. What would it mean if everybody in America saw that before the presidential debates started? It's really, it's quite amazing. I'm getting the signal here. We have to take a break. We're going to take a break. You listen to Sanity Check. The number here is 888-577-4487 if you want to join in the conversation. This is Sanity Check. We will be back in a moment.
It's our time to take a stand. Remember who we are. Remember who we are. There's a call across this land. Remember who we are. Remember who we are. We were a city on a hill, a candle in the dark.
Candle in the dark. Remember who we are. Michael, remember that? Krista Branch. What a great song, huh? That was an event that we put on, Restoring Freedoms, and X, you were there, and Gary Johnson, and all kinds of folks locally, and Krista came up from Nashville, and she gave us the rights to those songs to be able to use on some of the other stuff. I know that the Taxpayer Association used to love it too. So, but remember who we are, and we are a light, and we're out trying to wake folks up. X, we continue this conversation, and Mike also. This past week, called, the Independent Gazette has called all our state senators. And we're doing another article about the SB 195. And it was, Michael, it was amusing. It really was. You know, and we've talked about this prior, you know, when we went to all the state senators and asking if they would support it. But right now we're doing a poll. We're just doing a poll for our election editions here. And we're asking all our state senators, would they vote yes or would they vote no if this bill was allowed to see the light of day? And couple of responses I got to talk about. Senator Scarnati, okay? I called their office and I said, listen, SB 195. I said, would the senator vote yes or no if this bill was allowed to see the light of day, to have a floor vote? They came back to me and they said, oh, no, this is in committee and blah, blah, blah. And I said, that's not what I'm asking you. I said, are you for free and equal elections? I says, I know this bill will never see the light of day, not as long as Smucker is the chair. You know, of course, Scarnetti's office is probably now twisting. And I said, as long as Smucker is now the chair, there is no way this bill will ever see the light of day. So I'm not asking you that question. My question to you, Senator, is, will you vote yes or no, or do you support free and equal elections? Bop, bop, boop, bop, bing. We'll have to get back to you. So I guess we'll wait till next week whether they get back to us or not. But every single state senator will be listed, what they would say, and we're not listening to the, as we say, the 3-card Monty or the 2-step or whatever they want to give us. We're asking them straight questions, pretty straightforward. Either they support it or they don't support it.
Well, see, the problem is you're looking for a yes or no answer. see, and that's the problem, is that they don't ever give yes or no answers. And this is what we should really demand. And, you know, as I'm thinking here, Lou, I just get more and more ticked off. I get more ticked off. You know, I think of Lisa Baker looking us in the face. Oh, I'll support that. You know, it's a fraud. It's just a big, I'll give you what you want to hear, and then I'll go do exactly what the party tells me to do.
Right, Jay Sweeney. Jay Sweeney, knock Jay Sweeney off the ballot.
You know, so it's like, how do we get these people to be accountable?
This way. And I think Dan Johnson, when he was talking about NDAA, when he was on this show and spoke at the Radisson before I would say a Republican conservative Tea Party crowd, talking about, hey, listen, you know, sometimes you just have to go right to them and sometimes embarrass them. And you know, we're going to be sending that video out along with our story. And this story, Michael, is going out. I mean, we might be printing close to 100,000 prints this month, somewhere along the way between all our different publications. I'm not sure. It keeps going up every day as more and more people advertise and more people, you know, because we keep adding to the counts. We're pretty darn close to right around 50,000 right now, because I know John will hold me accountable if I don't reveal exactly where we're at this point. But at the end of the day, you know, these stories they spread around. We're starting to get picked up by the AP. A couple of different publications are now watching what we're doing. And you know what? The Constitution is being smuckered by Senator Smucker, and we're asking our Republican representatives to speak out and say, you know, it's an embarrassment. It really is an embarrassment. There's nothing ambivalent or about the wording in the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Article 1, Section 8. Elections shall be free and equal. There is nothing. There's nothing cloudy about that, guys.
Well, Lou, one of the things that I remember you talking about was the fact that you've been contacted by other newspapers because the Independent Gazette is the only one that can break these type of stories because they're so afraid of reprisal.
Well, that is. I'm glad you picked up on that too, and certainly that is what's happening. I mean, I could tell you right now, you know, we're getting that information, and people are coming to us. Just yesterday, the same thing about. A magazine did the same stuff, and there is intimidation. There is reprisal against a lot of these reporters. That's why we see more reporters leaving also. Good investigative reporters are standing up and saying, no, this is not what I got into this field for.
You know, Lou, this is so true, and I look at it, and there are some really good reporters out there, Lou, that I know, that really, really want to tell the story. But, you know, it comes down to that it's my job. And it's risk of losing my job. And what news source could possibly want to fire a reporter for bringing out the truth? This is a system that's just completely broken from all angles. And, this is really like not just the Independent Gazette, but other news sources that are willing to challenge the establishment within the news agency, Lou.
So as we get free and equal elections, and why we constantly pound on this, we're seeing a change in the electorate. We talked about some of the independents. I have an email here 2 days after threatening to lead the Republican Party and run for the White House in 2016 as an independent. Huckabee says, you know what, if my principles are being abandoned, and he was talking about the gay marriage in this particular issue, I don't think the GOP is going to walk away from the entire body of value voters. But if so, there will be no place for me as a voter and candidate. I love to see this, because what it's saying to me is that an individual is saying, wait a minute, I'm going to break away. And as they break away, and as they get into, more and more independents will stand up. We have a very, very low turnout in this country of people going to the voting box, and I attribute that to they're just not excited about their candidates when you only have two people.
Well, Lou, it's not only that, just the two people, and that is so valid. But, you look at it and say, I've been down this road before. I've listened to all the promises. I vote for the person, and then they turn out and be a fraud just like all the rest of them. And that's another reason why we need to have more competition, Lou, because this is the only way. It's just like, I'm tired as a citizen of having the fear struck in me. So now I think it's time that we really strike the fear into our politicians. And one of the ways of doing that is certainly a free and equal election process, Lou. And this is a fight that's really worth fighting.
And for those folks that say, maybe we're wasting your vote. Well, if you're going to use that strategy, anybody that voted for Romney wasted their vote. Anybody that voted for McCain wasted their vote. I mean, when you look at this, and what we're saying is, and certainly I've been saying this for a long time, especially in states that there's no way your guy is going to win, whether you're on the Democratic side or the Republican side. When you vote for independents, in very many ways, you're not only sending a message so your vote is counting. In many ways, you're also adding to their vote totals, which can change some of these ridiculous laws that are on the ballot to keep people off. In New York this particular time, we have a guy running, McDermott. Is running for governor. If he gets over 50,000 votes, he will automatically qualify the Libertarian Party on the ballot for 4 years. They won't have to go through the nonsense they just did this past year to try to get on the ballot. So you're not wasting your vote. What you're doing is really sending a message and saying, wait a minute, we're tired of this two-party system that has corrupted our political process.
Lou, so much of what's going to take place in the next election, you have to ask yourself, what would we be discussing right now if Gary Johnson and Jill Stein were on the presidential debate? Would we be addressing, drones? How about congressional authorization for bombing foreign countries? How about NDAA, warrantless wiretaps, the metadata that the government's collecting on everybody? Ethanol subsidies, corporate subsidies. There's so many things that they keep, you think there's like 5 or 6 issues, but all of those issues in the big scheme of things, is that what's putting people from Wall Street who commit crimes in jail? No. Both Republicans and Democrats have given them a pass. Big Pharma, billions of dollars a fine. Nobody goes to jail.
Well, I got to tell you guys, things are definitely changing. And if they weren't changing, you wouldn't even have another thing. The Chamber of Commerce is running ads with Rand Paul saying, wait a minute, you guys better vote Republican. I mean, so we have to look at all of this stuff. He's up in Alaska. He's down in North Carolina, evidently the Libertarian candidates. And for some reason, and I don't necessarily buy into this. I don't see any data or any information polling that says that Libertarians take more votes away from Republicans than they do Democrats. I mean, let's face it, there are hardcore Democrats that will not vote for a Republican anyway, anyhow, and there's an awful lot of Democrats that don't like who they have on the ballot, and the same goes for Republicans. But when there is no way, you take hardcore Republicans, there's no way they would ever vote for a Democrat, even if they don't like the candidate these parties are putting up. But when you have choice, then all of a sudden that changes. And Michael and X, you guys can weigh in on this. I don't see any data or any kind of information that surely says that as a libertarian that you're taking more votes away from the Republicans than you're doing the Democrats. And if it is, I don't think there's a whole bunch.
Well, let me jump in on this one.
Okay, go ahead, X. Sorry, Michael.
In the state of Virginia, Rob Sarvis, attorney, Harvard graduate, married to a pediatrician, ends up getting 6.6% of the vote in the Virginia governor's race. Well, the big spin the next day on the right-wing radio shows was how they had gotten some money from somebody that had once given money to a Democrat, so it was all a Democratic ploy. So that was the story afterwards. But then, of course, maybe about 2 weeks or 3 weeks later, they actually did some, real exit polling data. And they actually found out that the Libertarian was actually taking more votes from Terry McAuliffe, the Democrat. So the Democrat actually would have won by a larger margin than the other person that they kept trying to spin the story as. Because what's happening is they can't accept that their ideas have failed. So they have to put a twist on it. Like somehow somebody rigged the system against them, yet the Republicans and Democrats are the ones that are always rigging the system. So they're the ones calling cheating because, they think somebody's cheating them when they're cheating.
When you just talked about the money. Michael, you remember when the Independence Tea Party down in Philadelphia put out an email, 2 years ago when we were fighting Gary Johnson to get him on the ballot, and they sent a message out to all the Tea Party members that Barack Obama was putting money into the Gary Johnson campaign to get on the ballot, and all the Tea Partyers need to get down to Harrisburg to make sure Gary Johnson was not going to be allowed to be on the ballot. Remember we sent that letter to him and tell him that they're absolute frauds, that they should be ashamed of themselves, calling themselves Tea Partiers, when at the end of the day, what they were really only doing was supporting the Republican establishment.
And an establishment candidate like Mitt Romney, that if you lined up where he stands on the Constitution versus where Gary Johnson stands up on the Constitution, it would have been Gary Johnson's the one that supports the Constitution more than Mitt Romney.
Michael, go ahead.
The thing that we have to do really close is to understand and get the people to realize what the Constitution is, why it's important, and why it's not always important to say, what is this politician going to do for me? Because if we follow the Constitution, it's not always going to be in your own best interest. But it's the way this nation has been successful, and we need to take those candidates who really understand the Constitution.
Michael, we need to take a break. When we come back, we're going to change topics here a little bit. You're listening to Sanity Check on 94.3 FM The Talker.
Saturday mornings, 94.3 FM The Talker.
The Song of Freedom's crying out. Can you hear us now? Let's hope those legislators down in Harrisburg start hearing us soon, Michael. I'll tell you that. Hey, listen, I want to change topics here a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about Wayne Allen Root. Wayne Root, of course, was really our first interview that was not in the area here, and we need to get him on before. For those individuals that are not maybe familiar with Wayne Allen Root, he went to Columbia University, and he was there. President Obama was his classmate. He wrote and he writes. Wayne has written all kinds of he's a best-selling national author, The Murder of the Middle Class, The Ultimate Obama Survival Guide, and he's on Fox News, and he does all kinds of media appearances. He says, my time at Columbia made it crystal clear. Liberals always believe they are morally superior, while they publicly state that their mission is to save the world from prejudice, patriotism, racism, greed, and inequality. They are, in fact, hostile and resentful towards anyone who has achieved self-made success through American values. That was a quote from one of his books. And what I wanted to bring out was, and the reason I'm bringing up Wayne Root today, you you brought up that some of our stories are going wide and far, and that is very true. And one of the things that Wayne has done, and he speaks of a Cloward Piven strategy, which I want to get into, and it says what that is. Rahm Emanuel, once again, this is from Snopes, and they're looking to see if Wayne Root had things correctly attributed, and it was. And he says, Rahm Emanuel cynically said, "You never want a crisis to go to waste. It is now becoming clear that the crisis he was referring to was Barack Obama's presidency. Obama is no fool. He is not incompetent. To the contrary, he is brilliant. He knows exactly what he's doing. He is purposely overwhelming the United States economy to create systematic failure, economic crisis, and social chaos, thereby destroying capitalism and our own country from within." Barack Obama was my classmate. As Glenn Beck correctly pointed out from day one, Obama is following the plan of Cloward and Piven, two professors at Columbia University. They outlined a plan to socialize America by overwhelming the system with government spending and entitlement demands, and it adds up to clues below. Taken individually, they're alarming. Taken as a whole, it is brilliant Machiavellian game plan to turn the United States into a social Marxist state with a permanent majority that desperately needs government for survival. And that was something that, certainly we need to do a little bit more talking about this Clow and Piven strategy. But once again, the reason I bring up Wayne Allen Root, and I do need to just read his email that we got this past week. He said, I sent this to my college classmate, Mark Mujian. He is a lawyer, and it says, "Hi, Mark. Long time no speak. How you guys? Oh, how you doing? What a small world. A good friend of mine started a muckraker, a small town newspaper out in Scranton, Lujaskov. He sends me an issue that arrives today, the Independent Gazette. Even with my insane schedule, I decided to read it and support a friend, even though the newspaper is 3,000 miles away and the news in it has nothing to do with me. I became fascinated by the case of a lady in divorce proceedings who goes from $12 million settlement to poverty because it appears a corrupt judge and an indifferent court system conspired to he didn't use these exact words, but he said, screw her on behalf of their friend, the husband. Lo and behold, I see your name as the lawyer screwing her. Is that you? And he goes on and on. But I thought it was very interesting that Wayne would do that. And not only do that, but also the fact that what X had brought up, Michael, that these stories do go wide and far. And we're pretty proud about who's picking them up and who's following our investigative reporting.
Lou, it's funny because I think of people who are picking it up and they, I know there's some people. What are these loonies writing about today? And so if that's what draws it, that's fine because when you get into the paper, you realize there's some real substance to it. There's again, like you said, there's stories that aren't being told, and really the bigger media waiting for us to drop the ball or drop the bomb so they can jump on board. So it is, and this is what we should see throughout the nation, Lou, and certainly the goal. Will be a great goal for us to eventually get throughout the nation, but that takes time. So, but we're seeing, products online really starting to have alternative points of view, and particularly on the court system. So we just have to keep on pushing on, Lou.
Excellent. We got you back?
Yeah, you got me back. Hey, I was just going to point out as something as an observation for everyone, and that is, they keep talking about Congress having lowest, approval numbers, the president having lowest approval numbers. The reason for this, and I think this is something that people are missing out on, is the fact that in the past, the press could control a lot of this information coming out. And what's happened is the rise of alternative media has now made it so that a huge portion of the public is, let's say, waking up to what's really been going on. So I think in the past, people probably would have had the same contempt for the president. I mean, how would you have felt if you found out that, JFK was banging Marilyn Monroe? Or, LBJ has somebody, or FDR has somebody. The idea is, a lot of this stuff all started when the National Enquirer first broke the Gary Hart story.
Yep.
And then think about it again. The National Enquirer is the one that broke this thing about, I'm forgetting.
X, I think you said that you're in a rainstorm down there. I'm going to let you go only because it's cutting in and out, and we only have a few other minutes. But we'll get you back next week when it's maybe a little clearer down in the Arlington, Virginia area, and certainly we'll be in touch because the Arlington Independent Gazette will be launching here in 10 days. I see John... he's wringing his hands, Michael. He's wringing his hands. He's saying, "How are we going to get this all done?" But somehow we figure it out, Michael.
Well, we're gonna get him to Colorado so he can go relax.
He's saying yes, but John has nothing to do. The only reason he'll relax in Colorado is to look at the beautiful scenery. I believe. That's about it.
Absolutely, I agree. I agree. So, but the thing of it is when you're talking about, we're just really trying to make things perfectly clear to people that this is what we've been striving for, the truth. And that's all we're asking for, Lou. That's all we're asking from our politicians is the truth. And it is such a difficult thing for them to do. And I don't understand that because we have such a morally corrupt, really, country at this point that it's really about them. And really we demand more. And we really, in my opinion, need more God into government than we need politicians. But this is what we as citizens have to continue to push for and demand, Lou.
And demand and stay on it. And that's why it's so important to have a free and independent press. There's somebody that will be willing to continue to stay on this, ask the tough questions. We know we aggravate some of our Republican friends. We know we aggravate some of our Democratic friends. And quite honestly, I could probably aggravate some of my Libertarian friends, only because there are questions that need to be asked. And then we want those yes and no answers because we don't want to, and if it's going to take talking about Elisa Baker and demanding that she calls out Senator Smucker, then that's what we need to do. And I think that's the only way that we do make change, that these folks are held accountable to what they're swearing to, Michael. That's the other thing. I mean, when you get right down to it. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I'm just saying what we need is a whole Senate in Pennsylvania of Mike Fulmers who stand up. He doesn't care about the party. He doesn't care about whether people like him. What he cares about is the freedoms of Pennsylvanians. That's what he cares about. And we need Senator Fulmers all over Harrisburg, all over this nation. Not Lisa Bakers who will sit there and kind of, give you what you want to hear and then go back to Harrisburg and do exactly what she's told. It's really guys like Mike Fulmer that we need to pay attention to.
And we also need the Melanie Medeiros and Betsy Summers.
Yes.
I had to give those plugs in there. And I really mean that. Here's two individuals that I know will stand up to the good old boy system as long as we continue to do the same things that we're doing, vote the same ways. I don't see how things are changing. And one of the things I think where we also help too, Michael, is that by printing everybody's point of view, we're just not preaching to the choir. So that when we say, we have a Betsy Summers that's a libertarian, a Melanie Madeira that's running as a Republican. We're endorsing Democrats. We'd probably endorse independents and who knows, maybe even a Green Party candidate if they had met the criteria that we're looking for, and that is to follow the Constitution and just follow what you're swearing on oath to follow. Michael, we're done. You got the last word, as always.
Hey, God bless all.
God bless everybody. We'll see you next week.